I'm Lou Carta of the Middletown Health Department, and this is Healthline. We all know the importance of being physically fit, but building muscle may not be enough to achieve your goals. You also need to think about increasing your flexibility. In fact, flexibility along with strength, balance, and endurance should be included in a healthy workout regimen. Dr. Michael Vjada is here to explain how proper stretching on a regular basis can not only keep your muscles flexible, but strong and healthy too. Welcome to Healthline. Our guest today is Dr. Michael Vjada. Dr. Vjada is a chiropractor in Middletown and offers acupuncture as well. Dr. Vjada, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Lou. I appreciate the offer to come down and speak with your listeners.
And a lot of us don't think about stretching. We think about that as really from athletes or runners, things like that. But tell us why stretching. First of all, what is stretching and why is it so important?
Well, you know what? We all go through our daily lives with activities related to work, related to play, related to just resting. And our bodies get into a groove of doing the same thing day in and day out. So our joints and our muscles and the fascia that surrounds the muscles get used to a certain amount of movement. We get hurt when we go out of that bounds, when we go out of the range that we're comfortable in. That's when we get hurt, or that's when we get an injury. If you look at athletes are very flexible because they have to move way out of their way into an extended range of motion whenever they're doing anything. But the regular individual sitting at work, we're in a posture where our hips are flexed, our lower back is rounded out, our shoulders are rolled forward, and we're in that position for 6 to 8 hours. Doesn't it make sense that the body is getting choked up in those positions, and that you should get up periodically and just move around, or at least do some sort of stretches to undo the tension that we're accumulating?
And what type of stretching are you talking about? Are you talking about just getting up, walking around? Is that considered stretching?
That helps. But what you want to do is you want to put the joint and the muscles into a position such that it's the opposite of where you are comfortable. So it's not enough to just stand up when you're from a sitting position, but you want to extend. You want to reach out and arch back. You want to extend the leg backward, because when you're sitting, the leg is pulled forward. So you want to stretch that backward so that the body gets used to being in that position as well. Think about a rusty hinge on a door. I could put some WD-40 in there, and if I spray the WD-40 in there and just move it 2 or 3 degrees, the hinge will only get the WD-40 in that 2 to 3 degrees. When I put the WD-40 on that hinge, I want to open the door as much as it can and close the door all the way out so that the hinge gets covered in that WD-40. And you want to do the same thing for your joints. You want the muscles to feel the full extent of their resting length as well as full contraction. It's very important to fully contract the muscle, but it's very important to fully let the muscle go into a moment or a point of fully rested length.
Besides your joints being more flexible, does stretching improve things like blood circulation or stability, anything like that?
Those, and also your nervous system, because the blood vessels and the nerves course through the muscles. So if your muscles are constantly tight, you're choking off your circulation, you're choking off the lymphatics, you're choking off the nervous system. So the communication is inhibited with tight muscles. You can end up with symptoms like numbness and tingling that can go away or come back, and then you go to the doctor and they put you through all these tests to find out if you got a pinched nerve here or there. But if you just had better flexibility, that might be all you need. That's not to say that you can't have, of course, bulged, herniated discs, tumors, or anything else pressing on nerves and blood vessels and so forth, or that your blood vessels are caked up with plaques. But you want to at least make sure that you're flexible so that you don't have to worry about those things.
When should you be exercising? You mentioned a typical work day, people just kind of taking breaks and maybe stretching a little bit.
That's a very good question.
But explain that a little bit.
I'll tell you what I do, and I tell you what I do or what I advise for my patients. And when anybody new comes into the office, they get this lecture or they get this talk right from the beginning, because I want them to leave my office knowing that they have something in their hands that they could start to do to make themselves feel better today, not 5 days from now when I have to give them 5 different talks about how wonderful I am and how much they need to come in every day for the rest of their lives, that kind of baloney. I want them to know what they can do right from the start. So I always stretch out when I'm laying in bed ready to get out of bed. I do a simple little stretch where I just wake up my body. Then I don't jump out of bed. I roll on my side, swing my legs around, and sit up nice and comfortably. The first thing I do is I reach for a glass of water that's on my nightstand because the body needs hydration. I drink down my 8 to 10 ounces of water. I don't gulp it down. I just sip it down, relax. I walk around, and then I go right to my ball exercises. I stretch out my spinal muscles and everything else. I know people tell you that you got to warm up before you stretch out. Well, warming up is stretching too. I'm not saying that you should go into an extreme stretch first thing in the morning, but you can certainly wake yourself up. If you're walking around and you're sitting and you're bending over, you're stretching there too. But at least make it something that's more regulated.
You talked about using the ball there. Maybe you could explain a little bit how somebody can do that. It's really quite simple.
Well, it's very simple. I have a routine that lasts 2 minutes. What I do is I sit on the ball and I just do some simple circles with my hips, almost like if I had a hula hoop around my waist. I do that for about 30 seconds. Then, once I'm warmed up, I'll walk forward a little bit, lean back on the ball, and just let my body, pardon me, I'll let my body go into an arched position. Similar to yoga. Yoga is very similar in the movements that they have. I just I found it easier just to squash it down into a set of movements that somebody can do in 2 minutes, where they don't have to say, "Oh, I got to stay in front of a TV set for a half an hour or 40 minutes and go into these positions that are going to kill me," and so forth. The whole thing with stretching is that you want to get into a position that's comfortable for you. The more you stretch, the more comfortable you get in those positions, and the further you can go in those stretches. So to think that you're going to stretch your body out in one session is a mistake, because that's where you can have injuries. So in the morning, when I do the stretches, I just lay back and relax into the stretch, breathe into the stretch, exhale into the stretch, let my body relax into the stretch. Then I'll lay on my side and let my body stretch out over the ball, like if I was a bag of laundry, just letting my body relax into that stretch. I can freelance this, freestyle the stretches in such a way that I'll just move around until I feel an area that's tight, and then I'll stay in that position for a little while and let that tension ease out. And then once I've done that, then I get up and I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good. Then I can go on if I want, depending on how what my time is like and what my flexibility levels are like. I could lay on the ground. I could do a couple of simple little motions similar to what yoga is. You know, the upward dog, the downward dog, things like that. Stretch the hip flexors and so forth. There's a whole bunch of different things that I can do. But at the least, I do the 2-minute stretch. So I do the 2-minute stretch before I get going for my morning. I do that 2-minute stretch sometime in the middle of my day, and the most important time is before you go to bed. Because when you get home from work, you're tired, you're sitting around, you eat dinner, hang out with the family, maybe work on a project, whatever you do. But again, you're going to be stuck in sort of your go-to body positions, either sitting or leaning against something, and then we all finally just sit in front of the TV, watch the news, the weather, whatever we do, and then we're sitting, and then so our muscles get tight and get comfortable in that same old go-to position, and then we lay down to go to sleep. Well, then we toss and turn looking for positions to get us into a position that we can fall asleep in. But if we stretch out and release those adhesions and even out the fascia in our body planes, we're more apt to find a comfortable position right away and then go to sleep and then have a more restful night's sleep.
You're listening to Healthline. Our guest today is Dr. Michael Vjada, and we're talking about stretching and flexibility and all that kind of good stuff. You just described my entire evening minus the stretch. I bet a lot of other people probably could feel akin to that as well. You talked about how long to hold a stretch, normally about 2 minutes. But let me ask you, is there some way of stretching the wrong way maybe that really you can hurt yourself? What should people watch out for? Okay,
so just to go back to what you were talking about before that final question, you can hold a stretch for 2 minutes, but my stretches call for basically 15 to 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. So
now you can hold for 2 minutes.
Okay.
That's a long time, especially for a beginner.
Gotcha.
A beginner's going to be laying there for 2 minutes saying, what the?
So the total time should be about 2 minutes
and this way, the total stretch on the ball for me is 2 minutes.
Gotcha.
30 seconds doing circles, 30 seconds on my back, 30 seconds on either side. The whole thing when you do a stretch is you don't want to just go into a deep stretch right away because that's where you're going to get into an injury. That's where you can strain muscles, and a strain just means that you tore fibers. A mild strain is that you tore a few fibers. A moderate strain is that you tore a lot of fibers. A major strain or a severe strain is that you tore significant amount of fibers and that you're going to need some sort of help in terms of rehab.
Some type of therapy. And that.
So as far as stretching is concerned, what you want to do is you just want to get into a position where you start to feel some tension, taking a couple of deep breaths. As you exhale, let your body relax a little bit further. And over 30 seconds, you let your body relax a little bit further and until you get to a point where you're more comfortable. Now you could stretch further from that, but if you're doing it for the first time, you're gonna have some trouble because if you go past a certain point and you won't know it until the next day when you wake up and you say, "What did I do?" And then all of a sudden you're like, "Well, I'm not going to do that anymore," and then you don't do that anymore. And so you defeat the purpose of what you're trying to do in the first place.
Yeah.
So go slow and easy.
Yeah, a lot of people, myself included, when we stretch, tend to bounce. And that's not a good thing, I understand.
Well, that is a form of stretching, but you don't do that first thing in the morning. That's why I have a glass of water. You want to hydrate. You want to get the blood volume a little bit higher so that you can get the red blood cells to where they need to oxygenate the muscles. If you're dehydrated, the blood volume is lower and the blood moves sluggishly. And that's when you can get problems. Again, you want to drink some water before you go to bed at night. Heart attacks happen a lot in the middle of the night because we're dehydrated. Think about the importance of hydration and flexibility. The two big things that I talk about when somebody comes into the office, and it may scare them a little bit, but when you're first born, you're super hydrated and you're super flexible. When you die, you're shriveled up and you're in rigor mortis. So think about that. Super hydrated and flexible on one end of the scale, and you're dehydrated and you're rigor mortis on the other end of the scale. So what are we losing? We're losing flexibility and we're losing hydration. So if you do nothing else in your life to try to keep your health in line with whatever else you're doing, hydration and flexibility.
And certainly a topic we don't often think about, stretching and flexibility, very, very important. And if people want more information, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm located right here in Middletown. My number is 860-343-0222. It's just my wife and I in the office. My wife takes care of the front end. I take care of take care of the back end. Or your back, the back end.
There you go. And do you have a website by any chance?
Yes, it's VjadaChiro.com.
And you may want to spell Vjada for everybody.
VjadaChiro.com.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Vjada, for being our guest today on Healthline. Healthline is produced by the Community Health Education section of the Middletown Health Department, which is solely responsible for its content. Please join us again next month at this time for another edition of Healthline.